In today's video, I want to talk about driving deer in public cattail marshes. I would not recommend driving deer on your private land. That's a place where you want deer to feel safe. Other hunters will get into these bedding areas, hikers get into these bedding areas, shed antler hunters get into these bedding areas. So you can't really control what happens on public land like you can private. That's why I choose to drive the public land and let my private land, let all the deer come in there and feel safe. And, your public land is almost endless. I mean, there's public land all over the place, so I can drive something new every day and not really hurt anything. There's some hidden bonuses to driving public land, too, that a lot of people don't realize. And one of the big ones is, I go into new areas a lot. I go to places just because I found a big rub there or big buck sign or something and say, hey, there's got to be something big bedding in here. So we do the drives there to, let's find out what's in there. And you'll learn some new bedding areas. You get in there, you kick around, and you see what's going on right then in the season. And that's a great time to scout. And you learn some stuff for your bow hunting later on. In a lot of these areas, we find big dead bucks right into beds in these bedding areas, which tells you nobody's been really getting into them since the buck died.
What'd you find?
Found this dead, the whole body down in the bottom of the lowland down there where the flat beds were where we jumped the deer. It was all tore up. There was hair everywhere. Still connected. Everything was all connected.
Yeah, mature buck. Look at the brow on the one side.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a little sticker coming off here. Probably a wounded one grew a rack like that because of that.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, the whole body, the legs are missing, but the rest of it's down there.
Really weird looking rack.
Yeah, it's like coming off the side.
Well, cool.
First thing you notice when you hunt public marshes is that the majority of the hunters are up in the woods. They're in the hardwoods. But the majority of the deer are down in the cattails. They're down in the water. I know a lot of you don't have cattail marshes where you hunt, but you should be able to take something from this video because you can replace cattails with thick brush. You can replace them with some pothole back in the woods, and I'm sure you can relate some of this back to what you hunt. This hunt takes place in southeast Wisconsin. We're hunting right next to a public land parking lot. As a matter of fact, it's the biggest one in the area. And the whole woods is full of hunters. It's opening day, and there ain't nobody down in them cattails. It's not easy navigating in cattails. There's water in there, there's muck in there, a lot of it's floating bog. You'll put a foot through, you're gonna get wet. That's all there is to it. You just gotta ask yourself, are you here to see big bucks, or are you here to see pretty sunrises? What are you here for? If you're there to kill big bucks, you need to be where the big bucks are and not be worried about getting your feet wet. Here's an aerial view of the marsh where we drove. There's a main parking lot full of trucks just to the east, just off the picture. To the north is timber full of hunters. To the south is a lake. The brownish area is cattails. There are 2 islands in the cattails. North of the islands, it's sawgrass and short cattails that you can kind of see over. The wind is out of the west, and from my experience, big bucks will want to either run into the wind or run with the wind to the back. Seldom do I ever see them run on a crosswind when being driven. My stand was on the edge of the woods, high in a tree. We put 2 standers and tree stands on the island. It's important to use tree stands. A lot of the guys put standers on the ground, and that really limits what they can see and where they can shoot safely. Because the wind is out of the west, the standers get positioned first because they're downwind. Some bucks will jump and move as soon as the driver's scent blows to them. Others need to be just about stepped on or kicked. But whether it's the drivers or the standers, whoever is going to be in the upwind side needs to go in last. Here's where the known buck bedding is. When the pushers enter, they take a stander with them with a step ladder. He will stand on top of the step ladder to cover any deer that tries to go out the back door. This is the guy that usually gets the shooting. The pushers go through the cattails, zigzagging until they get to the island. Our pushers need to be quiet. They only yell or talk if they need to. The last thing you want is for the bucks to get advanced warning or to know exactly where the pushers are and find a way to slip through them. Too many people yell when they do drives. That's not a good thing. They think they gotta scare the deer. That's a warning. I mean, if those deer hear that from a distance, they're gonna plan how to get around you as you get closer. Quiet and catching them off guard and catching them by surprise is the best way. Right away when the drive started, a buck jumped up just 20 yards in and ran right under the guy in the ladder stand, Jeff Trudell.
Jason called it out, and I heard it. And next thing I knew, I saw it. But I mean, I would have shot it. And then next thing, he was right behind me again. I go to turn around, and I hear a crack, and the bottom rung on that set, and the ladder starts going like this. Son of a bitch, because I couldn't get it to sink in. I think what happened too is when those guys went in, I was literally on top of a trail, and the buck he went right on a trail and saw me, and then bounded behind me.
Yeah.
I should have been probably 25
Into the thick.
A little further back, not far, but just enough so he could have stayed on that trail.
Yeah, you know, that happens every time, and I can tell you guys that, but you don't know it until you go in there.
Oh, yeah, right.
Now you know it.
Now you know it, yeah.
Because that happens every single time we do this. I think if I would have been 25
or 50 feet back, he would have stayed on that trail and come right between me and you.
It started looking like the drive was over. I saw the pushers walking up onto the island, and I could hear them talking with the standers. But I've learned through experience that a lot of times those deer are sneaking when the drive's over. And it's going to take those guys a while to get out. So I'm just going to sit back and wait and see if anything happens. As I was waiting and watching, I saw a rack slipping through the cattails. I got my gun up and kept an eye on it, and when it popped into an opening and I knew it was a shooter, I took the shot and I could see I hit it.
They were already done with the drive, and that thing started sneaking out the back door. He come out right over here.
Yeah.
On this island.
Yeah.
And I'm watching those guys, and I look up, and there's a buck sneaking down, and there's a heavy trail because we're underneath my stand.
Oh yeah.
And he's like kind of coming down it, but then he started going like in between me and you.
Yeah.
And then I started shooting, and I was right on him, and it's like, am I hitting him or not? And I ran out of shells.
I heard.
And then he stopped in the middle somewhere, so I'm like putting shells in, and I'm like, my hands are so cold I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it real slow, and I'm thinking, you know what? This thing's gonna come out of there, and I'm gonna be messing around with these shells. Right. So then I just put it back in there, and he comes out and take another shot, and I must have missed, and he just stops, and he's down, you know, where I can't really get a shot at him, and all of a sudden I see his head go up like this.
Yeah.
And I know I was out of shells, so I pumped it open, and I'm putting a shell in there with my numb fingers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's gonna run, you know. I'm putting a shell, and he's looking around.
Yeah.
And I chamber it shut, and I pull it up with the crosshairs on his neck, shoot, and the neck goes up, down he goes. I don't know how big the buck is. It's got a good rack on it. But at 100 yards trotting with my eyes, I couldn't see it very good. But I know when I shot that 140, I couldn't even hardly see the rack. And this one, I could see the rack.
When you were shooting, I'm like looking at, I'm like, what the? I knew you were shooting at something.
I thought you could see it. I'm like, why isn't he shooting?
No, I had my gun up, and I could not see it. So he must have been down low enough where.
Man, am I shaking? I'm cold.
It's pretty cold.
So I think this thing was like teasing me. You put this rub right under my stand. This is the tree I always sit in. Yeah. So you paid for it. You don't tease the big buck serial killer.
Yeah, you don't mess with him.
Did you see him?
No, I saw something when I was over by Dave. Something came through there, made noise, and I said, Dave, look over here, and he goes, what? I go, you're right, no, you're left. And then I didn't hear, I just heard noise.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't see, you can't see in there.
I thought it was backdooring you.
So thick.
I think it did. You okay?
I'm just cold.
Oh, so he freaking fell through 3 times.
The fuck, the one I shot had a rack.
Let's go get it.
Okay. hope it's decent. It's hard to tell at that distance, you know. Right here somewhere. Oh, it looks pretty decent. Oh yeah, it's 10. Maybe even 11.
Right to the deck.
Oh, it's a 12 pointer. Look at it. You just didn't have the
Nice job.
last one. 12 pointer.
Here, man.
Get down there, I'll take a picture.
Yeah, me too.
All right.